as you can imagine, we're prepping, trying to figure out how to get a stop and score a basket against these guys. Other than that, it's really easy prep. Yeah, we got a great challenge ahead of us. Terrific team, complete in every way, really. No clear, identifiable weaknesses, to be honest with you. You look at, like any elite team that would be certainly a Final Four contender, national champion contender. They're elite on both ends. You won't ever hear me say both sides of the ball, by the way. We have a round ball. Okay. All right. Yeah, so a pet peeve of mine with basketball coaches. But they're complete on both ends, and it's interesting when you look at their team. You get great respect for how it's been constructed. They've been the model of consistency for a number of years, and I know maybe a few years ago they had a couple down years, but they've really been a model of consistency here late, and I think it's a byproduct of solid recruiting. Matt's an excellent coach. His staff does an excellent job, but you look, they haven't had a ton of transfers. They've just had solid recruiting class after solid recruiting class, and that's how you have consistency. You can't have consistency if you have an entire recruiting class transfer, or in 2 or 3 year span a bunch of guys leave, and that what they have had has had just consistent solid recruiting class after solid recruiting class, and they've really done a great job developing their players who have just grown as they've gotten older, and they're really good players. So it's a great challenge.
Obviously, they're a different type of team than Michigan State, but in some ways, is the challenge similar when you look at their offensive, defensive efficiencies? That the numbers remind me a little bit of what it was like when you had to prepare for that game. Is it a similar type of challenge?
Yeah, it is in a lot of ways. Just on the road, that's the one obvious thing. And then the second thing is their ability to shoot it is at a completely different level. And I think that's what really gives them a chance, I think, to have a great run. I don't ever want to say, national. They have a chance to make a great run in the tournament because of their efficiency from behind the arc. It is a joke. So that's the one area that I would say is not even close to comparable to the Michigan State team.
You mentioned obviously being on the road. You guys haven't really faced like a true Big Ten road environment this season. How much of an impact could that possibly have on this game?
Yeah, it's a good question because Wisconsin, it was the Big Ten football championship, so we probably didn't get their normal crowd in that particular game. Let's be honest, that's a great environment, but that was a unique one there. Iowa was good and loud and really got into it in the second half when they made a major run and knocked us around. Northwestern's in a different venue, we have the most challenging stretch here of games that I faced in conference play as a head coach. I don't think there's any comparison with the number of road games and the number of really challenging road environments that we're going to face with teams that are all in the upper half of the league, as well as obviously 2 home games against teams that are going to be hungry to get us. So it's I think our guys have understood that this is clearly the most challenging stretch of our season. It's not even close. There's no comparison.
Coach, when you look at their roster up and down, obviously, like you said, they don't have a lot of weaknesses. Is there one guy, whether it be Vincent Edwards, Isaac Haas, that you try to maybe take out of the game to give you guys more of a chance on the defensive or offensive end?
Well, if there were, I wouldn't tell you right now, okay? But I respect the question. They don't have a whole lot of guys that you can key off of and say, hey, this guy, you don't have to guard, or we're going to take our chances with this guy behind the line, or, this guy, they've got multiple players that command a double team. Obviously, Haas being the guy that clearly his efficiency is incredible, and their efficiency when he's in the lineup is incredible. So they do a great job of putting him in places where it's hard to trap or double team or dig or crowd or whatever. And they are really committed to playing that way. And again, that's a credit to Matt and his staff and the players that they're committed to playing this way. Long answer, no. I'll leave it at that.
With Andre, how have you seen him respond in practice, assuming that Cam doesn't play? How have you seen him respond in practice to his new role?
Well, we weren't able to do much yesterday because of just the wear and tear on our guys' bodies from Illinois. So we had some cleanup in film and some light work, but I don't expect it necessarily to be any different than he's kind of a quiet kid anyway. His disposition stays pretty consistent. I don't necessarily expect it to be anything different than what it's been. I just want him to be ready to go, and I expect he will be.
Chris, we've visited this before about how surprising this season has gone, about not many people, if any, would have predicted this. That said, Purdue at the preseason, you maybe would have circled that game to see how much work you have to do because there was a huge gap.
Yeah.
It's sort of still circled here in a different way. I mean, how close are you to them? Do you see this as a barometer at all, where you are at this moment? Maybe not program-wide, but how much more work you still have to do?
I think we might look at it in that respect. I think as much as anything, I'm kind of anxious to see how we perform in a very hostile environment against an elite team, and anxious to see what we can take from that, good or bad. There'll be a lot of good and stuff, and then a lot of stuff that we've got to continue to work on. So I don't know that I put a whole lot more into it other than that. Anxious to see kind of how we respond on the road in an environment where it's always loud there. At least that's what I understand. I've never coached there before, but everybody tells me about how it's always loud there. And I'm anxious to see how we respond against a team that clearly is going to be really ready to play well. And you're right. I think everyone who followed the league closely expected them to be, really good. I think they were picked second. I think everybody felt like that. I think they have just also kind of taken it to an elite level here pretty quickly.
Going back to Adam's question about Michigan State, when you think back on the preparation for that game, does anything stand out to you?
No, I think our guys were aggressive and ready to play and in attack mode. They're very different teams and very different teams to prepare for. So I don't really put a whole lot of, that one was here, the other one, this one's on the road. Two completely different teams in terms of how their makeup. Michigan State has elite players, an elite coach, and great, all this stuff. So does Purdue. They're just very different. But, I think your guys will be hungry and excited to play. We've got 2 games this week. We don't just have 1 game. We've got 2 games, and I want to make sure our guys understand that.
Chris, I know you're always trying to improve, and then you're never sort of satisfied with where you are, but is there any sentiment that, like you mentioned, going on the road, playing a team that's this good is sort of maybe not the last hurdle, but the last sort of like situation you guys can encounter sort of to learn something about yourselves? You've won big at home, you've come back at home, you've won big on the road, you've played good teams on neutral courts, and this is like the last thing maybe you haven't done yet.
Yeah, I look really at this stretch as being that of 4 games on the road. The stretch that I've talked about that I think is gonna test us in so many ways is being not necessarily just one game, but this stretch here. Indiana's going to be an incredible environment. Penn State obviously beat us, and Iowa's going to come in hungry. So I really look at I'm anxious. I think we're going to get knocked around as you'd expect. And I really look at how we respond to this stretch as much as anything.
And I know Purdue's very talented, but maybe not necessarily, full of NBA guys, and you've played some very talented teams, but is it more difficult that they play so well together and there's a compatibility with all these guys more so than just like playing a team that has 5 really good players maybe don't play all that well together?
Absolutely, yeah. And I go back to how well they've been constructed and built. How well the team has been constructed and built, and the program, the consistency of the program. They play together exceptionally well. And, they're older, but it's also can be challenging at times when guys have been in the program and you're coaching them. But they're obviously 4 seniors in the starting lineup. You can tell they like each other. They embrace what their mission and their challenge is. They do the dirty work. They're very good players, and I think they have multiple guys that are going to play in the NBA. But yeah, you could argue that other teams might have a guy or multiple guys that are higher on the draft board. But I think Matt would be the first to say that they have outstanding players, but the way they play and how committed they are to playing together is what makes them special. And after this game, I'm really going to be, I hope they make a deep run because I think they're a great example of what college basketball can be about.
I know we've asked you this before, but how have you seen Jayshawn Tate improve at running the point for your team?
Yeah, good. He's been good at times. It's a lot for him because we ask him to do so much, but I think he enjoys it too. Most guys do when you're asking him to play the point guard. I very rarely had a guy. I said, we're going to need you to play the point. Really? Point? I don't. Now we say, hey, we're going to need you to defend the post. Huh? You mean him, right? Not me. But everybody wants to play the point, and he does. He's done a good job with it.
Do you see his role changing any, especially with facing guys like Isaac Haas or Vincent Edwards here coming up on Wednesday?
You mean role in terms of?
In terms of switching from running the point in terms of, and then
playing on the inside. So, maybe. Haas, as everyone knows, is a mountain of a man, so I don't know that that's a guy we can put JT on to defend a whole lot. Not to say he won't at some point, but we do think we'll move JT around and defend a few different guys.
Chris, following up on that a little bit, as you look at this roster and the matchups, can you pinpoint a guy in your group who really needs to, I don't know, I wouldn't say take his game up, but who are you looking for? I would think Caleb is somebody, being a freshman, being in this environment, that really that's who your eye is on, is somebody that has to really kind of produce.
He's got to be able to defend. He's never defended a guy quite this big. We were joking yesterday about Odin, but Odin's bigger. Haas is really is a little bit bigger, and both in size and in strength. So I think that's going to be, that you look at it. It's amazing when you watch them on tape and obviously I've coached against Haas before, but you watch him on tape and you'll see a guy guarding Haas, and you look on film and you can't see him for one. You can't see the guy, and then when you see him, you'll think, oh, that's I did this with Michigan. That's the power forward. Well, no. That's their 5-man. He just looks like the power forward next to Haas. He's that enormous of a man. So Caleb is a guy, Micah, Kyle Young at times. We're going to have to do it collectively.
Would you say that, that it's on them a little more than even your perimeter guys in terms of
it's
what
on,
they face?
Yeah, it's on them to make him work and make him earn it and try to beat him to spots. But, there's a variety of ways to play a guy like that, whether you're trapping the post or digging. But again, their spacing and their shooting makes it so difficult. But yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a really physical battle. So a lot is going to be placed on them to do their work early.
Coach, I think this is mentioned at every single press conference, but what you guys have done this year can't be overstated enough. You have a chance now. I know it's a really good team tomorrow that you're playing for a chance to get back in first place at the Big Ten. What is the mood like in practice and stuff? Is it anxiety? Is it excitement? Is it confidence? What's the tone of the team as they're headed to a road game for a chance to play for first place in the Big Ten?
Yeah, I think excited as much as anything. They're really excited. They're anxious. But I think they're excited about this closing stretch. I know there's a lot in this game and a lot to think about this game, but we recognize that we have another game on Saturday and we have a really challenging closing stretch ahead of us. So I don't think they're looking at this game as being the be-all, end-all. I think they're excited to play it. We've always talked about playing meaningful games in February, how much fun that is for college basketball players. We really want to play meaningful games in February. That's where the fun stuff happens, and we've got a bunch in front of us.
Okay, last two, Bill. Clay.
Chris, you guys have had some decent success playing small this year, and with Kate at the 5. And I think maybe some teams have been able to get Haas in particular, and maybe some foul trouble pulling him out to the perimeter on defense. But what's the balance, knowing you have sort of that in your pocket? Maybe you want to go to it, but also making sure that you have to have Caleb involved, and maybe he's not the guy that is the right matchup to do those kind of things to Haas.
Yeah. There's going to have to be a balance there. That is how we played, and needed to play and felt like it gave our team the best chance of winning a lot of times, going that route. And, I'm sure we'll continue to play that way. Obviously, we'll have to look at matchups, and we have looked at matchups to determine, what kind of advantage we would have in that situation versus the kind of advantage they would have in that situation. So, are we going to play small a little less than what we have? I'm not ready to say that. It's probably going to be a little bit of a game-to-game, a little bit of a game adjustment. But I expect Caleb and Micah, as well as Kyle potentially, and Kate to all kind of be rotating in some of those big spots.
Okay, last one, Clay.
Anything definitive on Cam?
Just what I was asked last night at the radio show about Cam, and he's got class he needs to attend to tomorrow. So he'll be here in Columbus, finishing up or work. He's got a project and going to class, and then we'll reevaluate things on Wednesday. Let's see, Thursday. Thank you.
You think your message is getting through there?
Well, yeah, Kim and I had a conversation, going into the game the other day, and I think Cam accepts responsibility, and I think is ready to move forward, and we'll be excited. I know his teammates will too, to have him back playing, hopefully in short order.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
Okay, thanks.